Hi, everybody out there. Welcome to Punk Rock Politics with John Smith. I'm John Smith. I have an interesting article I found recently. It was interesting enough that I actually read it in its entirety to my friend on the train on Thursday. And, we'll just get right into it, and then I'll follow with a little commentary. It's going to be a nice brief video. And I'm going to do my best to make as many more condensed videos as I can. All right, so here we go. Warren has the chance. Oh, sorry. Excuse me. I should start by saying this is a USA Today article. And it is by Connor Turk. Turk spelled Turque. I'm going to put the link at the bottom of the video so you can see it. Warren has the chance to unite the left by endorsing Sanders. She should take it. It isn't just Bernie Sanders supporters who say there's no path to the nomination for Elizabeth Warren. It's not sexism either. It's math. I guess I should. This was March 4th, 2020. An article on March 4th. The primaries are here. Oh, never mind. This is for another article. I apologize. I'm a Bernie Sanders supporter and volunteer. In all the doors I've knocked on, which is quite a few, the one constant I've heard from Elizabeth Warren supporters is that the Warren and Sanders agendas are virtually identical, but that she's the stronger candidate who can actually get it done. Only she's not getting it done, and isn't going to. I know that Warren supporters don't want to hear this, and in their place, I wouldn't either. But if the supposed Sanders-Warren agenda is really what they care about, now is the time to get behind the viable candidate, and that's not Warren. If her base truly supports Warren for her policies, as I have been assured over and over again, it's time to show it by supporting Sanders. If that long since broken non-aggression pact ever meant anything to begin with, she would drop out and endorse Sanders. It isn't just his supporters who say there's no path for her. It's not sexism either. It's math. It's over for Elizabeth Warren. In a re-energizing debate performance leading up to the Nevada caucuses, Warren took New York billionaire Mike Bloomberg to task for his well-documented treatment of women in the workplace. Many saw a campaign revitalized and a second chance for the progressive who thus far had failed to place above third in a primary contest. But after a fourth-place finish in Nevada, a distant fifth in South Carolina, and a disappointing Super Tuesday, it's over for Warren. To be able to stay in the race until the convention, as she vowed to do, she had to walk back a key campaign promise, relying on Super PAC money to stay afloat. She has also walked back to her initial support for Medicare for all, of course. She keeps talking about Bernie's 30-year track record in which he supposedly failed to get anything done, which is flatly untrue. There's a link in this article that shows you that he was known as the king of amendments in the House, and just various accomplishments, including his VA reform with John McCain, and a lot of the mainstream media neoliberal argument has been that he doesn't compromise. He definitely compromised on that bill. There was a lot of things he did not like about it, but it was definitely by far better than nothing, and he wanted to help veterans who were waiting forever to be seen by a doctor or psychiatrist, whatever was the case in that, and just, it talks about the difference between writing bills and that there's different, even senators that both like and dislike him have gone on and said, you can't measure success by simply passing bills in a place like the Senate or the House because it's a very complicated place. Opposition and stuff like that is important. Anyway, I'll continue with the article. If we are comparing 30-year track records between the two, meaning Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders, it's worth noting that 25 years ago, she was a Republican and a corporate lawyer, trying to get the Supreme Court to hear a case arguing that LTV Steel should not have to pay into a health fund for retired coal miners. Bernie has baggage too, sure, but his progressive bona fides are as consistent as they come. Up until Super Tuesday, I was still hearing calls for her as a unity candidate. But in what reality could someone who failed to finish above third in a single state on Super Tuesday lead the ticket? With 61 delegates to Bernie's 501 and former Vice President Joe Biden's 566, who exactly is she uniting? This is no longer a race among candidates. It's a race between the left and the moderate wings of the Democratic Party. The result will have long-term implications for the future of the party. Sanders not only leads Warren in polling, but also in key demographics any Democrat would need to beat President Donald Trump. A chance to unite the left. Now, she does have the chance to unite the left. Instead of attacking those to her right, she has spent more time attacking the Sanders campaign, saying that remarks from abusive supporters suggest it may be built on a foundation of hate. She also said his team trashed her for digging in on healthcare details, telling CNN's Don Lemon that they just wanted to say, no, 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 we can't do that. Didn't like any part of it. This is part of the problem. My best guess is she's referring here to people from the Sanders camp pointing out key differences in the two Medicare for All plans, most notably Matt Bruenig's criticism of a head tax as her primary funding mechanism. That wasn't a smear, but the kind of substantive policy critique primaries are meant for. Couldn't be said better myself or by anybody else. It's great. Anyway. Their voter bases have always been different. Warrens overwhelmingly have post-grad degrees, are white and upper middle class, whereas the Sanders coalition is younger and more diverse, both racially and economically. Some Warren supporters who supported Hillary Clinton in 2016 are still angry at him for not exiting the race. I can't claim to empathize, and the ill will cuts both ways. But if the Warren campaign truly is the policy-based effort I've been told many times that it is, it's time to put policy first and back the one candidate on the left who can actually win. And it just has a little thing about Connor Turk, the writer of the article at the end, that says he was a volunteer for Senator Sanders' 2020 presidential campaign in Iowa and Nevada, and next heads to Michigan. Follow him on Twitter at Turkowitz, which is at Turkowits. Okay, so there's an interesting thing here. Now I apologize. This was an article from a few days ago, so Warren is dropped out since this article was written, apparently. So, but she has not backed Bernie Sanders, which is very important here. Now, I actually am close with somebody who says she wouldn't vote for Sanders, and I believe some of the anger is over Hillary Clinton. Now, let's just examine that because it's ridiculous on its face for numerous reasons, but it's like the fact that Hillary Clinton took control of the DNC, and Donna Brazile gave information from when she was at CNN to the Hillary Clinton campaign exclusively for questions for a debate between her and Bernie Sanders, meaning Hillary Clinton, to be clear. There was all kinds of issues and primaries and caucuses all across the country, purges in Brooklyn, New York, and 2 million provisional ballots in California that went to very probable and likely Bernie Sanders supporters. And the list just goes on and on. There was places where Bernie Sanders won 10%, 20%, 30%, even 40%, or I believe in one case, maybe even 60% more delegates. And in these cases, he would get the same or less votes than Hillary Clinton. It's anti-democratic. There's just so much evidence, and I'm going to get back into talking about what happened in 2016, and I've loaded a lot of very long reports that I'm going to be reading over the next few days and weeks to come to make sure people can't simply say that this is some ridiculous thing and people are just unhappy that Bernie Sanders didn't win fair and square, because that's what happened. Bernie Sanders was cheated, and in a fair primary, Bernie Sanders would have beat Hillary Clinton, and probably badly. So there's parallels here between what's going on now and what happened then. The elites in the party got behind Joe Biden and seemed to have convinced enough people that Bernie Sanders is a threat and he's not the best to beat Trump, despite actual statistics to the contrary, that Bernie Sanders has long been the best candidate to beat Trump and is tied in beating Trump in states all across the country, and is beating Trump in key battleground states like Pennsylvania. Yeah, I really hope that Elizabeth Warren supporters that really believe that her policy is simpatico with Bernie Sanders and that these policies are very important get behind Bernie Sanders. And I don't mean just vote for him. I mean, I hope that they talk to other people, get on social media, as much as possible. I mean that literally. Talk to people out in public, getting on the bus, in school, outside of school, at work, outside of work, getting a coffee, getting a soda at the store or water, whatever, etc. Although we gotta stop bottling water, but that's for that's for another time. Yeah, so I really hope that Warren supporters in particular push Elizabeth Warren herself to get behind Bernie Sanders. I hope they can remind her of what's at stake and how important it is that these policies get a serious shake, and Bernie Sanders is clearly the only candidate to do so, especially within the confines of the two-party system. So please encourage Elizabeth Warren, if you care about these policies, to support Bernie Sanders, because Joe Biden's not going to get it done. In fact, I think there's a legitimate fear that if Joe Biden is president, this world burns and floods and gets tornadoed and hurricaned into oblivion much sooner than any of us would like. And if you're on the shore, that means your house is under threat. Sinkholes. We really need to end fossil fuel excavation and usage as soon as possible. We need drastic changes in our economic system, in our politics. We need more democracy. And democracy would not allow people to get massive funding from taxes or the government or whatever you want to call it to exploit oil and gas. So they're called subsidies. We wouldn't have massive subsidies for something if it was such a success. So even on an efficiency argument, green technology is so much more efficient and even profitable, although it shouldn't be really profited off of except to continue spreading it and save the planet. But, again, that's a story for something to discuss at a later date. But yeah, so if you're an Elizabeth Warren supporter and you really care about these policies, push. If you're Elizabeth Warren supporter, and again, this is somebody who's close to me who's very driven to get a woman candidate, I understand that desire, and I understand that we should have definitely had women candidates, but that doesn't mean that we should have a woman candidate who is similar to disingenuous, should I say, male candidates. So regardless of whether it's a woman or man, it should be somebody with integrity and a track record, and Bernie Sanders has that. And let's not forget, Bernie Sanders is Jewish, although it doesn't seem like as far as I understand, he's not a practicing Jew, but he is Jewish, and his family, many were killed in the Holocaust, unfortunately, but his father did escape from Poland. I have Polish roots, that's kind of cool, and I have some, most of us have some kind of thing that maybe we don't identify as or didn't know about for a while, but I have some Jewish roots down the line in my family on my father's side, which technically makes me a silver Jew. Look that up. Not the band, the actual meaning of silver Jew. Not that I'm saying the band you shouldn't necessarily like or get into the band, but that's not why I know it. I found out they were a band after I saw somebody say silver Jew and wanted to find out what that means. But to be clear, I have some grievances with Warren. I'm a laundry list, to be honest. But they're about her policies, where she's come from, her, that she was in the Republican Party and a corporate attorney, as this article speaks to, that she fought against women who were given breast implants that were known by the company to cause cancer or potentially cause cancer, and then she fought for that company against the class action lawsuit, and I believe succeeded, if I'm not mistaken, in crushing that class action lawsuit, and that's not good. That's terrible. And I don't believe she ever really atoned for it, which is that's the issue. Is it's, to me, the more, if you're really into this and you do your research and do your homework, which you please all do, and if you're not doing it, then you're not taking your vote as seriously as you should. You should really look into people's records, what they've said and done, what they've voted for, and do your research and use multiple sources and look for independent media, look for legitimate media. Anyway, I want to encourage Warren supporters that may have been unaware of her record or for some reason overlooked it, but if you're serious about policy, as this man has been assured that wrote this article, and I have been assured so many times, then please get behind Bernie Sanders. He has a proven track record of being a progressive. He fights for the people. It's not me, us, all of us. And he really says that the way to get things done is people powered, is to get people in the streets, to get people to speak up, to call their senators, call their congressmen. These are things I've been saying for years and been trying to convince people to do more and more of every chance I get. And Bernie Sanders has been doing the same thing for a long time, and he's succeeding now because, well, it's a powder keg, quite frankly. And I mean, I'm very concerned. I mean, there's all these concerns about Bernie Sanders, but what about having a guy who can't speak, who's been inappropriate with women, who's made a slew of racial comments against Indian Americans or Indian immigrants? Look it up. It's just, the guy he's gone on the record, Joe Biden, saying he would take money from anybody and do anything they said. And this was like 50 years ago or so, or 40 to 60 years ago. I was a long time, maybe, no, excuse me, not 60s. 40 to 50 years ago. His record is awful. Him and Barack Obama broke all their promises, almost every single one, and did the opposite of what they said, like permanently extending the Bush tax cuts, expanding the spying program, keeping the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan going, and even surging in some cases. Geez, I mean, not punishing anybody on Wall Street except some 28-year-old mid-level manager, and there was like 12,000 managers, I believe, in that company alone. And allowing, the war machine and Wall Street to just keep doing what they do. Buy elections, to allow people in power and in companies, people with money, to influence politicians heavily. There's been studies that the bottom 80% of the population have no say at all in policy, because if we did, we'd have Medicare for all already. We'd have a whole bunch of things, and we'd be fighting climate change like the serious threat that it is. So, Warren supporters, please join us. Bernie Sanders has fought for, if your issue is women, I implore you to look into his record of standing up against all kinds of bigotry and hatred, and definitely including sexism. He's got videos going back from the early 80s, and even, I believe, possibly as like the late 70s, talking about how we need more women candidates. We need more women in office, and he helped in 2018 get so many women candidates elected. It was historic how many women got elected in 2018, and that was big part for Bernie Sanders, who never stopped campaigning since 2016, who did a unity tour with the candidates, who did everything he could to help, Hillary Clinton, despite the consternation of many of his supporters, including myself. But maybe, who knows? Maybe I was wrong on that issue, given who we have in office now. But it was, they were the two most unpopular candidates for a reason. They're both corrupt. One's a politician, one's in business. And they're friends, too. And you could look into the history of that. Bill and Trump and Hillary and their daughters are best friends, and Bill Clinton's talked to Trump for years. So the whole thing is absurd, and these people are helping each other. Trump's given to the Clinton Foundation for a long time. He gave to a lot of organizations to buy favor, but this goes beyond that. So they're trying to separate us, and we need to truly unite and fight for what we need desperately and want. So please, Elizabeth Warren supporters, I appeal to you, please do everything you can to support Bernie Sanders, and to do everything you can to reach out to Elizabeth Warren on Twitter, on Facebook, on any social media site you can get in touch with her. Usually Twitter is the easiest. If you have her email, if you're in contact with her in any way, just talking about it in general on all the social media sites so other people talk about it. This is no joke. The world's on fire, and Joe Biden is not going to address climate change in the way we need to stop the massive costs and the devastation we're going to see. This is true of healthcare, too. Think about, there was a great article I saw about the coronavirus that I'm going to cover. I might put that on my Patreon page for my, I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to cover that story, an article on my Patreon page, for viewers who subscribe for extra content. And what, not having Medicare for all does to people that are already, for people that are going to get sick from the coronavirus and are at risk of dying from it. Not to mention, when people get sick from a disease like that, they miss work, and if they're hourly workers, they could lose their apartment or their home, get their car repossessed, not have food to eat or to feed their children or their friends or their family or whatever, what have you. It's a serious thing where there's a lot of implications. The way the Trump administration has handled this is just absurd. The cuts to the CDC, or the Centers for Disease Control, and the cuts to HHS, or Health and Human Services, federal branches of government, and the executive that deal with these things, is just absolutely unconscionable. And so Trump supporters, I really hope you see that this man cannot get an infrastructure bill in. He can't handle and keep us safe from diseases. He is a absurdly corrupt human being that puts us all at risk. And there's already some new articles coming out about how Trump poses a risk. Again, I'm going to cover that on my Patreon page in detail. Thanks a lot for watching. Please share, comment, like, subscribe, and consider becoming a patron on patreon.com. This is Punk Rock Politics. So, Punk Rock Politics on patreon.com. I'm on, Twitter. I have 2 Twitter accounts. I have my Facebook page and my band page, the Death of John Smith, on Facebook. I haven't been using that very often, but I'll get to it. We're going to get you some more videos. I'm going to get you a lot of content out there. All right, thanks again. All right.